This is my assignment on digestion. I'm just going to be going through the process of digestion and how it works. So the first part of the system is the mouth or the buccal cavity. So even a smell of food will trigger the salivary glands to secrete saliva. The food is actually tasted, so when it's ingested, the amount of saliva then increases again. Chewing and breaking down of the food, again, more saliva. So each stage in the mouth is just producing more and more saliva. So the more saliva that there is, or mucus, it means that the food is being chemically broken down. So just quickly, I'm just going to skim over this. I'm going to talk about it again later, but amylase is the enzyme that works in the mouth that breaks down carbs. What happens next is the sort of slush that's been chewed and in the mouth is then passed through the pharynx, which just connects the buccal cavity or the mouth to the esophagus. So the esophagus is a muscular tube. It's just where the food is sort of pushed down through into the stomach. This is called peristalsis. So it's where the muscles in the walls of the esophagus sort of contract and push this food down into the stomach. The stomach is known as sort of like the acid bath because it's just filled with hydrochloric acid. So it holds the food as it mixes it all together with enzymes found in the stomach. For example, down here we can see protease, which breaks down proteins. Obviously, again, I'll go over that later. So when everything is sort of liquid, it's known as now chyme or chyme, however you want to pronounce it. And then it's passed again onto the small intestine. Before we talk about the next process, we're just going to look at what's happening at the same time as the stomach. So what's going on in the liver, blood is being processed, nutrients are being absorbed from the small intestine. Here, the main thing that happens at the liver is that bile is produced and is secreted into the small intestine. The liver makes chemicals that the body needs. It takes what it can get and it makes the chemicals that the body needs. And it also detoxifies harmful chemicals that are found in the blood. Now, as I mentioned, bile is secreted from here. Now, if we go quickly to the gallbladder, this is where the excess bile goes. So it's just like a little sac. As you can see in the diagram, just the green little sac there, that is where the excess bile goes. If the small intestine doesn't need it, it just goes there. And the role of bile is to absorb fats in the diet. Now back up just in the middle in the pancreas. You see the pancreas in the diagram, it's just sort of underneath behind the stomach, you can see there. This is known as the enzyme factory, so it's all your enzymes are found here, protease, amylase, lipase, breaking down all sorts of foods, carbohydrates, proteins and fats. So it's all going on in the pancreas. The pancreas also has a job to produce insulin and to get that into the blood. The process, we've now at the small intestine. So the chyme is now moved from the stomach into the small intestine. It's known, or you can think of it as sort of like a smoothie maker. So it blends the mixture into more of sort of like a liquid. So as I said there, that liquefies the chyme. And it separates the good stuff from the bad stuff. So it separates the nutrients that we want from the waste that we don't need and that we need to get rid of. So then we go to the large intestine, which separates all the water which then goes back into the body, because obviously we want the water. But it gets rid of all the bad stuff like the bacteria and the harmful toxins. It gets rid of all of the water, takes it back up to the body, and it leaves you with a solid mixture of waste that we don't want anymore. So you're just left with that waste product. So now at the rectum and the anus, so it's sort of down at the bottom as you can see in the diagram, just sort of two last things. So the rectum and the anus are all about excretion. So the rectum is like a chamber, and when the waste gets to the chamber, it sends a signal to the brain to tell your body basically that you're ready to excrete. You're ready to excrete out of the anus. So that's what happens when it gets to the rectum, and then obviously waste passes through and the cycle is all ready to start again. So just quickly, the kidneys. So just two organs, as you see in the diagram, that filter the blood. So they extract the waste, and they also make urine, which they send to the bladder, obviously. So they're almost like a purifier. They sort of purify the blood and the water and make sure everything's nice and filtered. And just quickly, the enzymes. So you've got amylase, as mentioned before, breaks down carbohydrates to glucose, which can then be used or stored as glycogen. We've got protease, which breaks down proteins into amino acids, which are then obviously used again, because there's only 20 amino acids and they're all used, you've got essential, non-essential. They're all used then to build other proteins and whatnot in the sequences. And lipase, which breaks down fats into fatty acids.